Disgraced cancer surgeon jailed for 15 years for wounding patients.
All they want to know is why, Mr. Patterson.
His victim said Ian Patterson was a monster who carried out unnecessary, grotesque and violent acts.
Today's sentencing has brought to an end over 4 years of trauma and stress in trying to bring this man to account.
Also tonight, Corbyn says he'll do this evening's election debate. May says she's too busy talking to voters. More than 90 killed and hundreds injured in a rush-hour car bombing in Afghanistan. A former friend of the Manchester bomber tells ITV News how she reported him to the security services. And the surfer nearly lost at sea thanks his rescuers for saving his life.
This is the ITV Evening News with Alistair Stewart.
Good evening. A disgraced breast cancer surgeon is beginning a 15-year jail term tonight. He'd conned patients into unnecessary operations, leaving them disfigured and traumatised. The judge told Ian Patterson he had deliberately preyed on his victims' worst fears, probably just for the money. Patterson's victims said more simply that he was a monster and that they were still suffering. As Juliette Bremner reports, many also asked why he was allowed to get away with it for so long.
Have you got anything at all, anything to say to your former patients?
Out walking his dog just hours before he was jailed, Ian Patterson refused to apologise. Now sentenced to 15 years in jail for mutilating and traumatising women, he'll be seen as one of Britain's most dangerous medical practitioners. His patients arrived at court together. He'd been found guilty of wounding 9 women and 1 man, but there could be more than 1,000 victims. Judge Jeremy Baker told Patterson, "You deliberately played upon their worst fears, either by inventing or deliberately exaggerating the risk that they would develop cancer." He added, "All have felt violated and vulnerable. There are some who have suffered prolonged psychiatric problems." Outside court, the women comforted one another, relieved their ordeal was over.
Today's sentencing has brought to an end over 4 years of trauma and stress in trying to bring this man to account. No amount of prison sentence will ever compensate what myself and the other people affected have gone through.
59-year-old Patterson was a trusted breast surgeon who abused his power, convincing women they had cancer and carrying out unnecessary operations. Judith Conduit had a double mastectomy. The procedure nearly killed her after she got a blood clot and infection. Eventually she learned she'd never had cancer.
Deliberate murder, and I think that's the only thing that could be worse than what he did, but it was calculated. He knew what he was doing. Because nobody challenged him, he got away with it. The more he got away with it, the more he did it, and it was a vicious circle.
There's dark moments, I think, for all ladies who are diagnosed as having breast cancer.
Patterson was arrogant, repeatedly ignoring warnings about his cleavage-sparing operation.
That there is life after this diagnosis. They get their life back.
Barbara Lewis had the controversial procedure. He left cancerous tissue behind, and the disease has now spread.
To have your whole world just turned upside down just for some selfish person who decided, to play God on you, it destroyed everything we'd done.
Victims gathered together to hear his punishment today, dismayed a doctor could do this and demanding to know why he wasn't stopped. There were calls on these steps behind me today for others in the health service who they believe must have known what was going on to also be held to account. There are now more than 500 former patients seeking compensation. While the NHS has paid out close to £18 million, those who went to the private hospitals run by Spire Healthcare have received virtually nothing. And there will be a civil court action later this year to sort it all out.
Juliette at Nottingham Crown Court, thank you. Jeremy Corbyn has said he'll attend tonight's TV election debate and threw down the gauntlet to Theresa May to join him. That, as the polls suggested, the race is tightening, even holding out the chance of a hung parliament. And when challenged over possible deals and coalitions by our political editor Robert Peston, Mr Corbyn appeared to leave the door open.
Adoration is nothing new for Labour's leader, even in a Tory seat, in this case Reading East. But being within a few percentage points of the Tories in the opinion polls certainly is. So, with his tail up, he's decided he will, after all, take part in a TV election debate, even if the Prime Minister won't be turning up.
I invite her to go to Cambridge and debate her policies, debate her record, debate their plans, debate their proposals, and let the public make up their mind.
But before I interviewed him, his fans, as usual, accused hacks like me of being unfairly horrible to him. Just behave, for God's sake. You're doing the debate tonight, why?
Because I think the public need to hear the difference between the two parties, and I wish the Prime Minister would be there also.
Now, the reason he's so chipper is that one poll suggests that the Tories could lose their majority.
The support is growing, activity is growing, door knocking is growing, street meetings are growing. Look at this meeting here today in Reading.
If she fails to win an overall majority, will you try to put together a coalition to take power?
We're fighting to win this election.
But would you put together? Would you try to put together a coalition?
We're doing no deals, no coalitions. We're fighting to win this election.
But you don't have to do a deal now. It's what you might do after the election.
Well, you better ask me that on June the 9th.
So what could he offer Nicola Sturgeon and the Scottish National Party if he did need their support to form a government? Now tell me, in respect of Scotland, is a referendum vote up for grabs?
The Scottish Parliament has said they want one. I think the support for the idea of a referendum is actually declining in Scotland. I think what we need to look at is that independence would bring huge problems, particularly funding problems and austerity. I think we should concentrate on the Brexit negotiations and gaining tariff-free access to the European market, and the Labour offer, which is of a National Investment Bank, which would put £20 billion of investment into Scotland.
But you're not ruling it out.
We are asking the Scottish Parliament and Scottish Government concentrate on the Brexit talks now. Deal with that later.
On his way to perhaps the biggest night of his political life, a debate with 6 other parties, which will help us to decide whether he's just a good challenger or a credible future Prime Minister. Robert Peston, ITV News in Reading.
And our political correspondent Emily Morgan is outside Conservative Party headquarters tonight for us. Emily, how has Theresa May reacted to the Labour leader's challenge?
Well, she pretty much shrugged it off, but I can't believe there wasn't a ripple of anger that went through the Conservative Party campaign team when they found out that Jeremy Corbyn would indeed attend the leaders' debate. The Prime Minister, though, stood firm. She refused to back down and join him. And one source very close to her said that Mr Corbyn shouldn't be travelling to Cambridge for the debate. He should be concentrating on his Brexit negotiations. Of course, it's the only thing that we journalists wanted to speak to Mrs May about when we got the chance, and this was her response.
I think debates where the politicians are squabbling among themselves doesn't do anything for the process of electioneering. I think actually it's about getting out and about, meeting voters and hearing directly from voters.
Well, she was repeatedly asked about it at that event and laughed off suggestions that she was frightened or running scared or snubbing the voters. She maintained that what she does up and down the country with the voters is much more important. But the accusations will be levelled at her, and some of those names might well stick. Will she watch the debate tonight? Well, who's to say? But I can't believe that she won't have one eye on it at some point this evening.
Emily, thank you. In Afghanistan, at least 90 people have been killed and 400 injured in one of the deadliest attacks there for years. A massive car bomb went off early this morning during rush hour in Kabul's heavily protected Green Zone. It detonated near Zanbaq Square, close to the Turkish, German and British embassies. Many of those killed were civilians. It's not known who carried it out. The Taliban said it wasn't them. Paul Davis with the details.
This is what a massive truck bomb did to Germany's embassy in Kabul. A guard was killed. 11 American contractors working nearby were injured. The diplomatic area of the Afghan capital is supposed to be secure, but a suicide bomber found a way through this morning. The result was carnage. If the foreign embassies were the target, it was ordinary Afghan citizens who took the brunt. Hundreds of people who'd been going about their business in the busy rush hour became casualties when a water carrier packed full of explosives was detonated. A stream of survivors, many in shock and injured, headed away from the scene where dozens had died. The explosion and the huge cloud of smoke it created could be seen miles away. It left a crater 15 foot deep, indicating the size of the bomb. Kabul's hospitals have been dealing with hundreds of casualties. Even for this city and its troubled history, this has been a dark day. This man said every single worker in his office was injured when the blast tore through. He can still hear their cries. As more than 50 vehicles wrecked by the bomb were being removed, the embattled Afghan government faces questions about its ability to protect the very heart of its capital. No group has yet said the bombing was its work, but it is just weeks since the Taliban promised the start of a new spring offensive. Paul Davis, ITV News.
Here, a former friend of Manchester bomber Salman Abedi has told ITV News she warned MI5 about him and knows of 3 other occasions when authorities were cautioned. The woman, who went to Arabic school with him for several years, says the local Libyan community feels let down and the attack could have been stopped. She's been speaking to our correspondent Rupert Evelyn.
Just minutes away from murder, and it's too late to prevent Salman Abedi from detonating his bomb. But there were alarm bells ringing, and from within his own Libyan community. ITV News has learned that the security services were specifically warned about him as late as last year, and on at least 3 other occasions since 2013.
We all know that he has been reported. We all know that this person and other people are known to security forces.
She knows because she is one of a group who raised the alarm.
He'd go drinking, he'd go clubbing, and then he suddenly changed. And it wasn't gradual. It all literally happened overnight.
As counter-terror police continue their raids in and around Manchester, there is anger that innocent people were killed in spite of specific concerns about their killer.
Has the Libyan community, has Manchester been let down by the security services?
I think we've all been let down, yeah, because this person has been reported and clearly they hadn't been keeping a close watch on him, and we trust these services, and now we all feel let down.
The former friend, once a classmate, she witnessed Obeidi's transformation from a liberal-minded man to an extremist, a monster, she says.
I think this could have been prevented. I really think these innocent children could still be here today if they took what we say seriously and acted on it.
Sadly, she was not surprised that Obeidi was responsible for such a savage act, but she is devastated that he was not stopped in time.
Well, we asked the Home Office about the claim that 4 warnings were made to MI5. Their response is that they do not comment on ongoing police investigation. But we do know that they are examining MI5 in terms of missed opportunities that may have stopped this bomber. The key question for many is whether they could or should have prevented this atrocity.
Rupert, thank you. Well, dozens of people are still being treated in hospital a week on from the attack. Among them are 8-year-old Lily Harrison and her parents, who were all in the foyer of the arena when the bomb exploded. In an exclusive interview, they told Damon Green how, amid the horror, everyone tried to help.
Lily had been looking forward to the concert at Manchester Arena since her mum and dad bought her tickets as a Christmas present. Now all 3 of them are on the ward at Manchester Children's Hospital, recovering from their injuries.
To go to surgery, and that was really scary because I didn't know what would happen after it, and I'm not used to going through that stuff, so it makes me feel a bit upset sometimes.
Lily's been a fan of Ariana Grande as long as she can remember. Just minutes after these images were taken, she was in her dad's arms with a piece of shrapnel in her back. But what her mother remembers is how from the very first moment, everyone wanted to help.
A lady and her daughter who were also trying to escape, who came over and helped me wrap my leg up. There was people coming over to check Lily's wounds, a doctor who was just in the car park, who came over, put the gloves on and just got to work. And then there was a policeman who ran with Lily across the car park, put us in a police van and got someone to bring us straight here.
The love and affection that's been expressed in the city in the past week, the bond of togetherness and support, have helped overcome the pain. Messages of kindness and love have helped these parents explain to their child that there is some good in the world.
It's a huge reassurance that, especially for someone Lily's age, that
there's one bad person and thousands of good people, and you get chatting to the other parents, and some children have got multiple injuries, you know, they can't walk, they can't, you know, and you realise that you're just very lucky to be, even though we're injured, we're, you know, relatively okay.
Staff at the Children's Hospital have put Lily and Lauren side by side as they recover. Being so close and letting them be a family, they say, has helped them get better more quickly.
I get to tuck her in.
Yeah, when I'm bedbound, you get to tuck me in at night, don't you?
But there are many others in Manchester who have suffered worse, and this family won't stop thinking of them. Damon Green, ITV News, in Manchester.
Now, the IRA terrorists who carried out the Birmingham pub bombings could be named at inquests into the victims' deaths. Lawyers representing the families of the victims killed in the 1974 attack raised the issue with the coroner today. He'll make a final ruling later in the year. There is growing speculation that President Trump is about to pull America out of the landmark Paris climate deal. The agreement commits countries to tackle global warming by cutting emissions of greenhouse gases. But as our Washington correspondent Robert Moore reports, Mr. Trump has always said it's bad for business.
For a week, President Trump has been under immense diplomatic pressure not to abandon the Paris Agreement on climate change. Not just at the G7 summit last weekend, but also when he met the most powerful advocate of them all, the Pope. Francis even presented Donald Trump with his recent writings on the environment. But according to White House sources this morning, Trump is now on the brink of ignoring those pleas. And he tweeted, "I will be announcing my decision on the Paris Accord over the next few days. Make America great again."
We're going to cancel the Paris Climate Agreement.
That was Trump on the campaign trail. So his imminent decision may be seen by some as no more than implementing an election promise.
Pour le climat est accepté.
But the Paris Agreement was widely judged a global diplomatic triumph. And for America to abandon it would have a severe impact on US standing around the world. One of the negotiators there was Nate Holtman. He believes if Trump pulls out, it would amount to a huge blunder.
It hinders the world's ability to reach its long-term goals of keep limiting the risks of climate change. So it does have significant impacts. We have to acknowledge that, and we have to recognize that that's serious.
Only yesterday, Trump's spokesman was struggling to answer even this question.
Can you say whether or not the president believes that human activity is contributing to the warming of the climate?
Honestly, I haven't asked him.
Okay.
I can get back to you.
If Trump confirms he is walking away from the Paris Agreement, it will only add to the sense that America is abandoning its traditional role as a global leader, and it will deepen the already growing transatlantic rift. Robert Moore, ITV News, Washington.
NASA is setting the controls for the heart of the sun, sending a spacecraft to discover more about our closest star. The bold new mission will see the Parker probe enter the solar atmosphere for the first time. But to succeed, it will have to withstand temperatures of 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. Warm, as our science correspondent Alok Jha explains.
The sun is the power behind all the life on our planet. It's the reason we exist. But we don't actually know how this star works. To end that mystery, a daring new mission by NASA called the Parker Solar Probe.
We are going to be moving at blistering temperatures. We are going to go right up into the corona. But until you actually go there and touch the sun, you really can't answer these questions. And these questions are so simple. Why is the corona hotter than the surface of the sun? That defies the laws of nature. It's like water flowing uphill. It shouldn't happen.
The spacecraft will be the first to fly directly into the sun's atmosphere, a hostile region of unimaginable heat and radiation. It will go within 4 million miles of the sun's surface, where it'll have to withstand temperatures of more than 1400 degrees Celsius. The £1.2 billion mission will study the sun's corona, its outer layer. It'll provide information about solar wind and eruptions that cause dangerous space weather. That information will be crucial to protect satellites on Earth and to make power grids more resistant to radiation outbursts from the sun.
Essentially, it will be sort of sniffing and sensing and tasting, as it were, the material around the spacecraft. So really taking it into the instruments and working out what those particles are. The sun's atmosphere is a varied and dynamic place, and making these measurements of the particles in the magnetic fields allows us to understand the physical processes behind that activity.
We'll see the most detailed views ever of our sun after the solar probe's daring mission begins in summer 2018. Alok Jha, ITV News.
Arsene Wenger will stay on as Arsenal manager for 2 more years. The club officially confirmed he'd signed a new deal today. Wenger's been in charge of the Gunners for more than 20 years. And finally tonight, the touching reunion of the surfer, his surfboard and the rescue teams who plucked him to safety after 32 hours lost at sea. Matthew Bryce was found barely alive after disappearing off the Scottish coast last month. Now, out of hospital, he's been able to thank the people who saved his life. Our Scotland correspondent Peter Smith was there too.
Matthew Bryce owes his life to the rescue teams that refused to give up on him.
Nice to meet you, mate. Good, sir. Absolute pleasure to meet you. Because I honestly thought we'd never do that.
It is 1 month to the day since he went missing.
This is the Coast Guard team, Matthew.
Now back on his feet and on dry land, Matthew wanted to meet the staff and volunteers here in person to deliver a heartfelt message.
No second guess about it, you guys are all heroes. In my eyes, you all are. And I can't thank you enough. Yeah, that'd be it.
How do you feel having the chance to say it to them?
Very happy and very grateful. Yeah, it's just they do a fantastic thing here and we should support it fully.
All right, Ken.
After 32 hours in the cold water, this was the dramatic moment Matthew was found. The RNLI team filmed the rescue from their boat 13 miles off the coast. You can hear their elation.
It's alive! It's conscious! It's alive! Ah, it's conscious! What is out there?
But it wasn't just Matthew the search teams found in the water that day. And back at the station, they finally had the chance to reunite that surfboard with its owner.
I take care of you, you better take care of that now.
Probably will go back out surfing with this board, but for now, it's just going to stay up on the wall.
The board back under his arm, Matthew took me to the beach where he went missing.
Mentally, I would say I'm doing very well. The fact that I can speak about this at all, I would say is probably testament to that. The fact that I'm ready to, go ahead and start enjoying life again. I mean, I just want to go and start embracing something that I didn't think I was going to have.
Matthew calls his experience hell, and he knows his road to recovery is just beginning. But he's not one to cower. He wants to return to these waves. Just never again will he go out there alone. Peter Smith, ITV News, Machrihanish.
Beautiful. That's it for now. I'll be back with news at 10. Till then, a very good evening to you. Bye-bye.